With some of what we're looking at here on Africa World Hour, we look at this, the Global Africa Business Initiative. It's gearing up for the fourth edition of its flagship event, Unstoppable Africa, taking place on the 21st and 22nd of September at the Marriott Marquis Hotel in New York. The forum, which has become the leading African business gathering outside of the continent, will bring together global leaders, investors, and innovators under the theme The Big Push. Africa Shapes the Markets. To speak about this year's event, what it means for Africa's economic transformation, we're joined now by Tolu Lewis Tamoka, Chief of Government Relations and Africa at the UN Global Compact. A very good evening to you, and thank you so much for speaking to us.
Thank you for having me. Good evening.
Let's perhaps start with the theme for this year's meeting, and I spoke about the array of people who are going to take part in the conference, but how are they chosen? How is there an effort to make sure that there is maximum value add in every individual that is there?
Thank you. That's a very important question because this year we're convening for the fourth time the Unstoppable Africa Global Engagement event at the Marriott Marquis in Times Square over 2 days. And at this convening, it's important that we're able to showcase Africa's finest in the business and private sector industry. Global Africa Business Initiative will convene under the theme that you mentioned already, the big push. And this is the time for Africa to shape the markets. And so a big part of our conversation this year will be about trade, especially given the current geopolitical trends and how Africa is poised to take advantage and really engage in the opportunity to trade given the new current headwinds globally. So that's our big theme. And we will continue to engage around the key themes that GABI convenes around, which is conversations around trade, energy, also having that space to showcase some of Africa's finest in the creative industry, sports, music, fashion, but also look at how we've advanced in achieving the 2063 agenda and in driving the AFCFTA forward, which is also very much a priority for the UN, also in achieving the SDGs.
Just how significant is it for both the UN Secretary General and the AU Chairperson to be co-hosting this edition?
It's a very important opportunity for the Africa Chairperson. As you know, there's a new leadership at the helm of affairs in the Africa Union. And also, the SG has prioritized Africa within his global initiatives for the UN. And so the opportunity to once again meet on the back of UN at 80 is a significant opportunity to once again show that Africa really is a priority of the United Nations. And really having private sector through the UN's role in engaging multilateral stakeholders and private sector and business being one critical partner, really showcases that the opportunity now in 2025 is beyond development, it's beyond only aid, it's about driving investments and driving opportunities for the continent to really drive the markets, hence our theme this year.
And you know, when we speak about value add, one of the things that just my thinking personally, that often we take a moralistic stand as Africa, even though there are problems within the global trade system. And that is to always say to other countries, rich countries, that, you know, you really need to rebalance the subsidies that for instance, farmers get of the countries that are supposed to be at least helping us enter their markets. But it's good to see that we are now looking at what we can do in terms of moving raw minerals like lithium and cobalt and refining and manufacturing them locally, even if it's not in our own countries, but we are driving the national agenda for Africa.
Very important points you've emphasized there. It's about what can Africa do for Africa this time around. And Africa, as we know, represents 3 trillion in terms of its market and also presents a significant business, trade, and investment opportunity for the world. Hence, the G in our name, global, also means, how does Africa situate itself within that global space to take advantage of opportunities to trade with the rest of the world. I think we know full well that the rest of the world has, traded with Africa. But this time we're looking at how Africa benefits from such opportunities, trade, innovation, and also looking at how the creatives can drive economic progress for the continent. And in terms of one of the issues you mentioned, the opportunities around critical minerals, these are the conversations and the solutions we will be finding for during our convening this year. We'll have, global stakeholders, African experts in this industry, really showcase the opportunities to drive Africa's growth in this important sector forward for the continent and also particularly for the young people on the continent with new opportunities for employment, for skills, and also to help move the growth of the continent forward.
And what do you say to young people who will be attending the conference, young people who are watching, who themselves are contributing to the discussions you're having when you're looking at the digital and energy sovereignty issue? I know that's something that you're going to be looking at, because the reality is we are at a quagmire where we looking at the investment versus aid paradigm, how to navigate those shores while coming out of it on top, where we ensure that it's Africa that is transformed. It's our economy that's growing, and we're retaining those benefits domestically.
Exactly. I mean, I would say to young people, you're welcome to Unstoppable Africa 2025. You're welcome either to join us in person if you're working as an entrepreneur, a unicorn, an incubator. We really want to hear from the voices of young people at our global stage. And for those who cannot be with us in person, we welcome them virtually. We will have the opportunity for folks around the world to connect to us virtually. We'll be live streaming 2 days of convening because the voice of the young people on the continent are really key. We know what they represent in terms of the opportunities for growth on the continent and ensuring that they are part of the solutions to many of these critical issues, as you mentioned, tech, AI, opportunities, not only for the continent, but for the world. And young people from the continent can play a leading role across the world in this nascent but very important area. And we don't want them to be left behind, but really be at the helm of creating new solutions for the new challenges and opportunities that the world will present. So it is a space for young people, and we're happy to have them with us. We'll have young folks who will speak and be part of our speaker group in Unstoppable Africa. And so it's really an opportunity for young folks to really engage with some of the key players across Africa and the world through Unstoppable Africa.
And I mean, it's back to our formative issue around growth amidst these geopolitical headwinds, but developing complex value chains that will ensure or translate into trade liberalization and value-added manufacturing and integration for Africa. What will it take? Because it will take a lot more than all of you sitting there at the table coming up with solutions, but building platforms that are resilient to the task.
Right. No, indeed. And we know that 4% of the annual GDP of Africa's growth is on track to outpace the global average, which currently stands at 2.7%. So this is a huge opportunity for the continent to move forward in terms of its growth trajectory. And so at our convenience at Unstoppable Africa, we'll be having some deep dive conversations into many of these critical issues, looking at opportunities for growth in the digital sector. Definitely, that's going to be a game changer for the continent, but also looking at energy. This year, we're going to be showcasing a very important innovation that is happening across Africa. It's called the Mission 300. It's about electrifying, providing electrical connections for 300 million Africans across the continent. And this is backed by key governments as well as key stakeholders who want to see this transformation, which will unlock opportunities for employment, for jobs, for entrepreneurship, for innovation on the continent. So I believe if we get at least two of these opportunities right, we then unlock this economic trajectory for the continent, being that, there's so many countries really poised to outgrow their pace in terms of economic growth on the continent, and backed with the right skills and the right stakeholders to help fast track this innovation, we will see a lot of progress. And that's what we want to do. We want to provide a convening space to help catalyze and make connections to advance these critical issues on the continent.
Some observers have said we really need to underscore and refine the role of development banks on the continent to ensure agency and not dependency. We obviously don't want to dwell on the challenges, but what do you see as the low hanging fruit?
Right. No, that's an important point because we will have many of these development bank players on our stage, the likes of Afrexim Bank. They've made critical inroads into, driving investment opportunities, not only on the continent, but also bringing in the Caribbeans into the mix, looking at, trade across and beyond even our borders. And we want to tell the story despite the challenges around risks that business is happening on the continent, big business, and there is opportunity to even go into larger scale with support of these development banks who can back up, these innovative ideas that the private sector businesses have on the continent. And so we're bringing these key stakeholders together to see what is happening at scale on the continent and for countries to learn from each other, really ensure that they can also bring to bear opportunities for their own citizens to really advance in terms of growth on their own soils. And so bringing the development sector, the private sector, the banks into our spaces and really looking at ways to unlock these opportunities, we will be able to ensure that we're able to go an extra mile in ensuring that we truly unlock scalable innovations and really address some of the perceived risks out there and that could hinder progress, but showing that, businesses on the ground are making change happen, are using the innovative tools to further and advance. And also, these development banks can also learn one or two things from how the businesses are able to thrive and really bring their own resources to complement the effort of private sector on the ground.
Just a final one, and I know I'm supposed to end the interview now, but there's one I'm intrigued by and excited to hear about: sports economies. What is going to be on the table in adding this to the matrix?
Right. We've always had sports economy as one of our key areas within our work around showcasing the creative sector because that's a huge opportunity for growth on the continent. And we will also showcase that again this year. We're going to be joined by sports icons who will be on our stages. Some of the sports icons who are globalists around the world. We have the likes of Louis Deng, a famous basketballer, not only for his fame on the global courts, but also giving back to the continent in terms of business opportunities, but also providing opportunities for young people to dream of also getting to similar levels in terms of basketball and other sports opportunities that could also help unlock growth in terms of the sports economy. So we'll be having these key players, the likes of Azizat Oshola, who is a leading footballer, female footballer, but also ensuring that she's able to innovate also in her home country in Nigeria and open doors for young girls to see this field as an opportunity for economic growth, for employment for themselves too. So we'll be having these voices on our stage
All
this
right.
year.
Tolu, thank you so much for speaking to us. Much appreciated. All the best for the event. Hope we are able to check in with you again about what's going on there and the outcomes. Tolu Lewis Tamoka, Chief of Government Relations and Africa at the UN Global Compact, just speaking to us about Unstoppable Africa.
Africa.